December 4th, 2008. Jenson Button is standing at an airport baggage claim when the call comes through. Honda Racing is shutting down. Effective immediately. He is 28 years old. 9 seasons in Formula One. No team, no car, no future. 12 months later, he would be crowned world champion. 15 years later, most Formula One fans wouldn't be able to tell you exactly how it happened. Formula One never stopped talking about Senna's spirituality, never stopped analyzing Schumacher's ruthlessness. Hamilton still defines an era. Vettel still owns one. But one world champion from that same era barely surfaces anymore. His name appears on lists of Grand Prix winners. His face appears in retrospectives, usually in the background, celebrating someone else's story. When Formula One tells the tale of 2009, the hero is Ross Brawn, or a diffuser, or a fairy tale. Rarely, if ever, is it Jenson Button. So we have to ask the question, the one nobody in Formula One quite wants to answer. Did Formula One quietly erase Jenson Button? February 2009. Ross Brawn buys a Formula One team from Honda. Not for millions, for £1 sterling. That team had no engine, no sponsors, no guarantee it would even make the first race. 2 months later, they walked into Melbourne, and Jenson Button qualified on pole. He led every lap. Rubens Barrichello finished second. A perfect 1-2, and Formula One had its fairy tale. Then Button won the next race, and the next, and the next. 6 victories in the first 7 Grand Prix of that season. The world went wild, but not for him. The story became the diffuser. The story became the pound coin. The story became the genius of Ross Brawn. Even 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher said it. Congratulations to Jenson and Ross and the whole team. What they managed to achieve this year has my full respect. Just 1 year ago, they did think everything was over. But listen carefully. Jenson and Ross and the team. Everyone shared equal billing in the fairy tale, except for the person actually driving the car to victory. Here is the question nobody asked at the time. If it really was just the car, if it really was just the diffuser, why did Rubens Barrichello, in the exact same machine, only win 2 races that year? The first time Jenson Button's story disappeared was inside his own championship season. Rewind 9 years. Year 2000. Jenson Button is 20 years old, the youngest British driver ever to sit in a Williams. He scores points in his second race. He finishes 8th in the championship in a rookie season. He wins Rookie of the Year, and then Williams drops him. Not because he underperformed, because Juan Pablo Montoya was contractually free. Button was a placeholder, a stopgap, the pattern of his entire career, before it even began. At Benetton, he collapses. At Renault, he stumbles. At BAR, he starts to rise. A stunning 3rd place in the 2004 championship. 10 podiums, and still, the British press wrote him off. They called him a playboy, a pretty face, too soft to be a champion, too calm, too smooth. Tabloids ran stories about his beach holidays and his girlfriends far more often than they ran his lap times. Damon Hill, the 1996 world champion, said this after Brazil in 2009. He got accused of not taking it seriously, but I think he showed everyone how serious he is inside. By the time Honda collapsed in December 2008, Jenson Button had spent 9 years being told he wasn't a champion. 9 years of being underestimated. 9 years of being the driver you signed for 1 season while you waited for someone better. The world spent 9 years telling him he wasn't a champion. Then Honda gave him one final gift, by leaving him for dead. Then his championship disappeared behind a diffuser. You know the story. Or you think you do. Brawn GP dominated the first half of 2009. Button won 6 of the first 7 races. The championship looked over by summer. Then Red Bull upgraded their car. Vettel started winning. McLaren figured out KERS. And Jenson Button, the runaway leader of the World Championship, went 9 races without a single victory. 9 races, 0 wins. From Silverstone in June to Interlagos in October. The pressure crushed him. Barrichello, in the exact same car, took 2 victories at Valencia and Monza. The gap in the championship shrank every weekend. Formula One waited for Button to collapse. At the Singapore Grand Prix, race 14 of the season, he almost did. Here is what he said years later, looking back at that weekend. "I remember at Singapore saying, 'What are we doing?' It felt like the opposite of the first 7 races. Nothing went right for us. I said on the radio, 'We're throwing it away.' By the time the circus arrived in Brazil, Button's championship lead was fragile. Then qualifying at Interlagos turned catastrophic. Wet track, wrong tires, wrong timing. Button qualified 14th. Barrichello, his teammate, his closest rival, took pole position at his home race. The British press wrote the obituary of his championship on Saturday night. On Sunday, Jenson Button drove the race of his life. Bold overtakes, cold-blooded defense in the final laps. He finished 5th. Enough. Enough to be crowned world champion with 1 race still to spare. The team radio caught the moment history forgot to remember him for. "Oh, what a race. I am world champion. I am world champion." If it wasn't the car, then what was it? What weapon did Button have that made him a champion, and made everyone else miss it entirely? Every generation of Formula One is defined by how its stars look on camera. Hamilton, late braking, tire-shredding aggression. Alonso, never surrendering. Vettel, perfect qualifying laps, pole-to-flag dominance. Raikkonen, raw and unfiltered speed. Jenson Button read the race before it happened. His genius lived in things the camera couldn't capture. He felt tire degradation 2 laps before the telemetry showed it. He predicted rain 3 laps before it arrived. He nursed cars through their final stints when everyone else's had already broken. He stitched together lap times so consistent that his pit wall could plan the whole race around them. Listen to Daniel Ricciardo, a driver from the generation that came after Button, describe what he did. Jenson did it different to most of the others. He had a good crew around him, was low-key, low maintenance, and just a silky smooth operator. He's still the best I've seen in those not quite wet, not quite dry conditions. That's sketchy weather, silky, smooth, sketchy weather. Formula One doesn't build its highlight reels around silky and smooth. Formula One builds them around fast and furious. Which is why, to understand Jenson Button, you have to understand Canada, 2011, June 12th. Montreal, rain of biblical proportions. 6 safety cars, 1 red flag that stopped the race for over 2 hours. When it restarted, Button had already collided with Hamilton, been penalized, collided with Alonso, fallen to 21st place, dead last. Then he started climbing. 6 pit stops, 4 hours and 4 minutes of racing, the longest Grand Prix in Formula One history at the time, and on the final lap of a race that Sebastian Vettel had led for most of the afternoon, Vettel made 1 tiny mistake, and Jenson Button swept past him, winning. Lewis Hamilton, immediately after. I have to offer my heartfelt congratulations to Jenson. He drove an absolutely incredible race and thoroughly deserved this victory. It was an utterly fantastic performance from a truly great driver. Martin Whitmarsh, McLaren team principal, that same evening. The 2011 Canadian Grand Prix may well be remembered as one of the most eventful, exciting, and suspenseful races in Formula One history. Formula One celebrates poles. Formula One celebrates overtakes. Formula One celebrates aggression. Jenson Button rarely dominated any of them. He dominated the one thing the sport forgets to measure, the ability to make the race come to him. But if his brilliance was invisible, what happens when a sport built on visibility writes its own history? Then his numbers disappeared behind bigger names. Here is the case. 6 pieces of evidence. In the order Formula One would rather forget. Start with this. 2011. McLaren. Jenson Button versus Lewis Hamilton. Same car, same team, same season. Button finished second in the championship with 270 points. Hamilton finished 5th with 227, 43 points. Button ahead, in the same car. Daniel Ricciardo, again, years later, listing his favorite Button seasons. That's no easy feat, as we all know. He beat Hamilton on real circuits like Suzuka. He was at his best in 2011. Then look at 2009. The car everyone said won Button the championship. Button, 6 victories. His teammate Rubens Barrichello, 2. Same chassis, same engine, same double diffuser. Then Montreal. From 21st place to 1st. 6 pit stops, 4 hours and 4 minutes. The longest race in Formula One history. Voted the race of the decade. Then, the diffuser myth. Here is Jenson Button, in his own words. There were 6 cars out of the 22 on the grid that had a double diffuser. Toyota. Williams. Everyone seems to forget that. They just didn't perform as well as we did. 2 other teams had the exact same trick. Neither of them won. Then any online ranking of the greatest Formula One drivers of the 2000s and 2010s. Alonso appears. Hamilton appears. Vettel appears. Raikkonen appears. Button, usually absent. And finally, Formula One's own official podcast, Beyond the Grid, celebrates its champions with feature episodes. Alonso, Raikkonen, Vettel. Their episodes are marketed, promoted, remembered. When Formula One tells its own stories, Jenson Button is a supporting character. 6 pieces of evidence. 1 world champion. And a sport that decided, somewhere along the way, that these numbers belong to somebody else's story. Which brings us to the hardest question. If those numbers belong to a different name, would we tell his story the same way? They said he won because of the car. His teammate didn't. They said he wasn't aggressive enough. He beat Hamilton in the same car. They said he was too smooth to be a champion. Canada 2011 answered that. They said he was lucky. 306 races across 17 years doesn't happen by luck. So what happened? Jenson Button fell between the eras. He arrived after Michael Schumacher's dynasty. He won before Sebastian Vettel's. He raced alongside Lewis Hamilton, but never quite defined the same era as him. His championship came wrapped in a fairy tale so loud that the driver inside it became a footnote of his own story. He retired quietly at the end of 2016. No fatal crash. No dramatic press conference. No farewell tour of unforgettable victories. He simply stepped away. Remember that phone call at the airport back in December 2008? No team, no car, no future? Formula One did eventually find a place for Jenson Button. In the commentary booth, in the paddock, in the post-race interviews with the drivers who came after him. The sport eventually found a place for him, just not at the center of its own story. Jenson Button, years later, was asked whether 2009 felt like the fairy tale everyone remembers. His answer was this: "It wasn't a fairy tale season. It was one of the toughest years of my life." So here is the question we can't answer for you. If you had to remove one world champion from the last 25 years of Formula One's story, who would you erase? And if your answer isn't Jenson Button, then explain to us why he's already halfway gone from ours.